Hey y'all, welcome to the Flavor Fox. I'm here to put delicious looking recipes to the test so you don't have to. I'm your friend in the kitchen, just telling you like it is. So come on y'all, let's get cooking. You can find links to the recipe we're trying today, along with helpful ingredients and the kitchen stuff I use in the description of this video. Hey y'all! Today's recipe was created to find a solution to an issue. If you live in an area like I do that once a year has this plentiful bounty of a specific fruit, it is so great to use that fruit in everything you possibly can. But you get to a point where you run out of things to do with the fruit, or it needs to be used before it goes bad. And I know you can turn it into jellies or jams or just can it in mason jars in pieces, but that takes a lot of time and effort, and sometimes that's just not possible. And maybe, just maybe, you get some inspiration from an unexpected source. That's right. Today's recipe is inspired by the movie Steel Magnolias, in which Dolly Parton plays Truvy, who talks about bringing a cup of cake to a get-together. She says it's a cup of this and a cup of that, baked until golden bubbly. And that's exactly what we're gonna do today to solve my issue with a bunch of peaches that needed to get used, but I didn't have time to do any canning in mason jars. That's when I went searching for a recipe for something like this and found one on southernliving.com that they call Easy Peach Cobbler. The image on this looked great, and y'all, the reviews on this thing, so many 5-star ratings. People raved about how easy it was, and it was their new go-to dessert. When we get to the ingredients, we can see where that cuppa comes in. In addition to 1 3/4 pounds of fresh peaches and a 1/2 cup of salted butter, we have a cup of self-rising flour, a cup of granulated sugar, a cup of whole milk, and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then on the timing, it says the active time is only 10 minutes with a total time of 55 minutes. Not bad. The instructions are pretty straightforward and even include some helpful pictures as you go through each step. Okay, let's get started. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Then, while the oven's preheating, we'll place our butter on an 11x7 baking dish. And with the oven preheated, we'll place that baking dish with the butter in it into the oven to melt the butter. And now I'm going to slice the peaches. I'm just showing here that off camera I washed these peaches using the method that the recipe mentions, where you rub the fuzz off of them as you wash them. Now the recipe didn't specify any particular thickness of the slices of these peaches, but as I was looking at the images on the instructions themselves, they looked sort of thin. So that's what I'm going to do here, is slice them into thin slices. I've elected to keep the skin on these peaches, but the recipe also stated you could boil these for a few minutes in order to take the skin off of them. I got through the rest of the peaches, slicing them up pretty evenly, and pulled out my kitchen scale to make sure I had 1 3/4 pounds of slices. Then in a mixing bowl, we'll make the batter real quickly. So here I'm putting in a cup of flour, and a cup of sugar, a cup of milk, and that vanilla extract. Then we're just going to mix that all up with a whisk. Until it's all really blended together. You can see here, there's no lumps or chunks. And now we pour the batter into the baking dish with that melted butter already in there. And here's the hardest part, folks. The instruction said, do not stir this after you put it in. My poor little heart could not stand the fact that there was a big old blob in the middle, but I resisted. And now we just place those peaches on top of the butter and batter mixture. Didn't really have any rhyme or reason to this, and I wasn't trying to do anything fancy. You could always lay these out and do concentric circles or really nice rows. I was in a hurry, so I just started placing them in. I actually took a little pause to go check the recipe again because this started to feel like way too many peaches. I was really scared this whole thing was gonna overflow with juice from the peaches plus all of the batter. You can see I'm kind of mushing them a little bit, but okay, following the recipe just like it says. I'll freely admit here, I was so worried this was gonna boil over, I put a cookie sheet underneath it before I put it in the oven. But here we go. As Truvy said, I'm gonna place it all in the oven until it's golden bubbly. But much more precisely, the recipe said 45 minutes. And at 45 minutes, I pulled it out of the oven. I had people over for a get-together, so I only took a snapshot of the final result so I could compare it for y'all. With the side-by-side comparison, recipe on the left and my result on the right, we can see mine came out quite a bit more done than the image on the recipe itself. The image on the recipe also seems to have more of the batter. With the recipe done and guests ready to eat, let's see how it ranked. On time. This recipe took me exactly 55 minutes, just as stated. It was about 10 minutes of prep time and 45 minutes of cook time, so I'd say right on. The instructions. The instructions on this recipe were really clear, and I was so glad there were images as I went through because I was really tempted to stir that batter mix and butter together, y'all. But the recipe warned me not to, so I kept my paws off of it. The look. Now, as I mentioned, I had company over, so I had 4 additional judges to give their thoughts on the look of this one. Everyone agreed it was a little overdone on the edges, but nobody seemed to mind the haphazard way that I put the peaches in. I showed them the image on the recipe, and they said that was fine, but so was mine. The taste. Everyone agreed this tasted wonderful. Even though it may have appeared a little bit overdone in places, it didn't taste overdone. The taste and textures were exactly as you'd expect from a peach cobbler. It was right on all of the flavors, and everybody really liked it. The final verdict. This one is certified foxy, y'all. It was easy to put together. The touch time was only 10 minutes. And the taste was wonderful. Now I know mine didn't look exactly beautiful, but with a little more effort it could have. I also really love that the recipe included some alternatives like using any other fruit that you have in season. Now I know this is not a traditional cobbler, but it had all of the delicious flavor you'd want out of a cobbler without all of that mess. So call it a cobbler or call it a cuppa cake like Miss Truvy, but I call it delicious. So when you think, what would Miss Dolly do? I'd say she'd do this, and she'd sure be proud of you. I'm so glad we found something certified foxy today. Find this recipe and other great ones in the Flavor Fox recipe box. Don't y'all forget to check out the video description for links to this recipe, the ingredients, and even the kitchen stuff I use. Thanks for stopping by my kitchen. See y'all next time.